What do you get when you cross a Fire-type Pokemon with the Protosynthesis ability? Hello everyone, it's Foo here, and today I want to one-hit KO the entire world with Gouging Fire. The Fire-type damage output of this Pokemon in the Sun is absolutely ridiculous. Sun boosts Fire-type damage by 50%, and Gouging Fire's Protosynthesis ability gives it a 30% attack boost, so that means its Fire-type moves are almost doing double damage in the Sun, which is absolutely crazy. So I really just wanted to maximize the Fire-type damage of this Pokemon to get some ridiculous KOs on even Pokemon that resist, and so that led me to build this crazy choice band Gouging Fire Sun team. And I think we should just dive straight into a battle so that you can witness the absolute devastation that this Pokemon can cause. So you can see my team on the left. We've got Gouging Fire and Walking Wake as the main damage output for the team. I've got Tornadus and Eviolite Electabuzz as support options. Torkoal's there for passive Sun and a much better Trick Room matchup. And I've got Stonjourner because it gives me so much joy, and I'll go into more detail about why Stonjourner is there towards the end of the video. My opponent has a team that looks quite rain oriented because Archaeoludon loves the rain with its Electroshock move. The only thing that's a bit weird is the Chi-Yu there, but I decide to lead with my Gouging Fire and Tornadus, which is pretty much the standard lead for this team. So my opponent sends out their Tornadus and their Urshifu, which turns out to be Rapid Strike, which kind of makes sense for the rain team. Now my priority here is definitely to get up my Sun because that will help mitigate the damage from the Rapid Strike Urshifu and also boosts my own damage. They actually Terrastallize into a water type straight away, so that's kind of scary because it's going to do so much damage. So obviously in the face of such a powerful water type threat, I decide to Terrastallize my Gouging Fire into a Fire type, removing my Dragon typing and making me weaker to Water type moves. This may look like a weird play, but you'll see why I did this in a second. My opponent's Tornadus is actually faster than mine and goes for the Tailwind. Urshifu is faster than Gouging Fire anyway, so I prioritize Sunny Day over Tailwind. As I said, that's going to help me be able to tank Surging Strikes from that Urshifu. I set off my Protosynthesis, which boosts my attack. Now the Surging Strikes comes out. Gouging Fire should be able to live one, but fortunately it goes into the Tornadus instead, which is definitely the preferable option. And you can see that it does actually do over half even in the Sun, so without the Sun, that would have KO'd my Tornadus. But we're in an okay position, Tornadus survives. Now I just fire off a Terra Fire boosted, Sun boosted, Protosynthesis boosted, Choice Band, Flare Blitz into the Urshifu, and it gets the one-hit KO despite being resisted. That's why I wanted to build this team, because Gouging Fire can get resisted one-hit KOs without any stat boosts, just with multiplicative, abilities and stuff. So I just really had to build a team around this. It's absolutely crazy and it's so fun, and most people don't expect it because a lot of Gouging Fires are like setup Pokemon. Anyway, Polito comes in here and changes the weather, but I'm just going to set my Sun up again. It's so important that the Sun is up. It helps my Gouging Fire, it helps my Walking Wake in the back. Bleak Wind Storm comes out. I actually do survive with my Tornadus, and Gouging Fire takes some damage. The speed drop on Tornadus isn't that game changing. And Politoed fires off a Weather Ball, which is generally its best single target water type move, but because I control the weather, it turns into a Fire type move and doesn't get stabbed. So my Gouging Fire easily survives and is able to get off another devastating Terra Fire boost of Flare Blitz. Unfortunately, Tornadus does have the Focus Sash, so I'm able to take it down to the Focus Sash, but I have to take the recoil and I actually faint without getting a knockout on the opponent's side of the field. So not ideal, but still I've done severe damage to the opponent's side. So now we can bring in our cleanup sweeper, which is Walking Wake, which again gets Protosynthesis, boosting its special attack. It's actually max speed timid, so it's really fast, but has a lot of power because it also has Life Orb. Hydro Steam is boosted in the Sun as well, so it's going to be doing a lot of damage. Now, this turn my Tornadus is really low health, so I'm expecting it to go down. I just want to set up a last-ditch Tailwind, and I'm able to do that as the opponent's Tornadus goes for a Bleak Wind Storm, takes out my Tornadus, and actually does do good damage to my Walking Wake. And it gets a speed drop there, which is kind of unfortunate. But I am able to get the Hydro Steam off into the Tornadus, take that down. That's great because it was a way for them to control the weather with the Tornadus. Now that's down, that's pretty good. They also don't have any more Tailwind control there. So opponent's going to send in the Politoed as I am going to go into my last Pokemon, which is Torkoal the Spacey. And here, because of the speed interactions, the Politoed's Drizzle goes off first, but Torkoal gets its Drought last. So I still have Weather Control, which is really advantageous for me because I get the Protosynthesis and I get the Hydro Steam damage boost, and also Torkoal just does a lot better in the sun. So I'm able to go for the Helping Hand here onto my Walking Wake, and the Politoed, because of the speed drop, Politoed moves before my Walking Wake, but its Weather Ball again is Fire type and not Water type, so it's doing very little damage. I am actually able to outspeed the Archaeodon despite my speed drop, and I can take that out with the Helping Hand boosted, Protosynthesis boosted, Life Orb boosted Draco Meteor. So that goes down and the battle is cancelled at that point. So you can see this team is just built around two insanely powerful Sun Sweepers, and it's all about having that weather control. I've got another battle that I want to show you just to demonstrate the raw power of Gouging Fire. So let's move on to that. So this battle is against K, and they have a very physical damage oriented team, which is good for Gouging Fire because it has a very high base defense stat, so it can take physical hits relatively well. You've got tons of priority there, Tornadus for speed control, and then a random Primarina, which I wasn't exactly sure what it was for. I couldn't quite tell what the Urshifu would be, whether it would be Rapid Strike or Single Strike, since they do have a Water type and a Dark type already. But anyways, I do lead with my Tornadus and Gouging Fire again, and we can see how this one goes. So my opponent sends out Primarina and Tornadus to start, another Water type, which is not ideal because Primarina is generally very bulky. I am going to Terrify it in front of the Water type again, as my opponent sets up the Rain Dance, and it goes before my Sunny Day. Now that's a really important interaction that I wanted to show you, that I'm actually running a relatively slow Tornadus because it helps with the weather control. It means that my weather control goes second, and I will generally get my Sunny Day up. And that's so important for this team because having weather control this team lives or dies on that. And I fire off the Terrifier Flare Blitz into the Primarina. It is a one-hit KO again, which is mind-blowing because Primarina is generally bulky. It's usually max HP invested, so the fact that resisted, I still one-hit KO it is insane. Now Entei comes in, and I was so excited for this interaction. Who was going to win? Entei or Paradox Entei? Who is going to be the better Fire Dog? So we both set up Tailwinds. That's the kind of brainless gameplay that you expect of this channel. Stomping Tantrum comes out and doesn't KO Gouging Fire because of its massive base defense stat. It's able to live a super effective Stomping Tantrum. I get to retaliate with a Flare Blitz, and you know that that's going to be a one-hit KO. So this is categoric evidence that Gouging Fire is better than Entei. It can do with a resisted hit what Entei can't do with a super effective hit. That's pretty impressive. So I just needed to show that interaction off. Entei's getting a lot of use at the moment as an offensive fire type because it does have access to extreme speed too. But if you want fire damage, Gouging Fire will always be the more powerful option there. So now my opponent has Rillaboom in the back, and these are their last two. I bring in Walking Wake, which I think is okay here, but it is a little bit vulnerable to like a Fake Out Bleak Wind or maybe a Grassy Glide and a Bleak Wind Storm. So I decide to switch out my Walking Wake. I've got my Eviolite Electabuzz in the back, which is super bulky. It's a really cool Pokemon now, actually, because it gets access to Follow Me, so it's a good support Pokemon. And also it has the static ability, so I was hoping that maybe a Grassy Glide or a Fake Out from the Rillaboom would activate my static, and I would get a paralysis there. It doesn't actually happen. The opponent sets up Rain Dance, which is sort of fine at this stage, because it just means that my Bleak Wind Storms are going to be 100% accurate. And yeah, on this following turn, I just go for a Helping Hand with my Electabuzz, and Electabuzz is going to allow my Tornadus to close out this battle with a powerful Bleak Wind Storm, knocking out both of the opponents. So at this stage, it was fine for me to give away my Sun because I could sweep up with my Tornadus. Walking Wake's okay in the rain as well because it still gets a damage boost on its Hydro Steam, it just doesn't get the Protosynthesis activation. So this is the team. As you've seen, we've got the ridiculously powerful Choice-banded Gouging Fire with Terra Fire. It's so bulky, it tends to be able to take one super effective physical hit and then knock something out with a sun-boosted Flare Blitz. Tornadus, you've seen, is the main weather control with Sunny Day, as well as having speed control with Tailwind. It's just a very good Pokemon there, and it's really important to have the Mental Herb. You've seen that it's slower than other Tornadus, and also it'll be slower than Whimsicott, so you don't want to be taunted, but you do want to be slower because you want to set up your Sunny Day after their Rain Dance, so that's really important. Eviolite Electabuzz is really cool. It's actually super bulky if you invest in its defenses. And here I can show you some gameplay where there's a Stellar Terror Chien-Pao that's really threatening my Gouging Fire. So I can go for a follow me with Electabuzz, redirecting Chien-Pao's Sacred Sword, which is going to go into Electabuzz. Electabuzz can tank that really nicely, and it can activate its static, so it's a way of having some passive speed control by paralyzing opponents that go for contact moves. So that's really cool. Not only that, I've got this footage of an endgame against a Fluttermane. I do actually have Electro Web on my Electabuzz too, so I can protect my Walking Wake as I get a speed drop on the opposing Fluttermane, and they can go for a Dazzling Gleam, but I can survive that. And then what it allows me to do, I mean, Electabuzz is easily going to survive that, but what it allows me to do on the following turn is then go for a Helping Hand Hydro Steam. So I get the Electro Web damage, and because I've dropped the Fluttermane speed, it means that my my Walking Wake is going to have even more powerful Hydro Steam with a Helping Hand boost to hopefully finish off this Fluttermane, because I'm outside of stun in this end game. So that was just demonstrating the really usefulness of Electabuzz with a lot of speed control and utility options. I love it. I think it fits this team really nicely. We've got Walking Wake here as the backup sweeper, and this thing can do like as much damage as the Gouging Fire almost. You can see here that I'm setting up the Sunny Day, activating the Protosynthesis. I've got Terra Water on this thing. Hydro Steam has its damage boosted by 50% in the sun, and I can fire that into an Urshifu, so it also is able to one-hit KO Rapid Strike Urshifu, even though it resists. And I also have this footage just showing that it can one-hit KO Ogerpon when the sun's up with Draco Meteor. It's a really, really powerful Pokemon, and with base 109 speed, max speed Timid, it does give you a nice Pokemon to clean up games. I've got Torkoal on this team as a passive way of setting the sun. It can Helping Hand to get even more ridiculous one-hit KOs from Gouging Fire and Walking Wake, and it's great for Trick Room matchups. If the opponent does decide to set up Trick Room, then you can just Eruption sweep them with Torkoal. Lastly, we have Stonjourner, and I have a battle to show you to demonstrate what Stonjourner does for this team. So in this matchup, the opponent does have a very scary Landorus. I don't have any switch-ins for Landorus on this team. It's a really hard Pokemon for me to deal with, although Walking Wake is obviously a big threat for it. It outspeeds and has the Hydro Steam to KO it, so that's generally the best route. I do decide to lead with Gouging Fire and Tornadus into this team because I was fishing for ridiculous Gouging Fire one-hit KOs. I have to say that I was kind of throwing for content. Generally, Walking Wake is a better option into the Landorus. But I did bring Walking Wake in the back, and I also brought Stonjourner because I wasn't quite sure what the last should be, and I wanted to try out Stonjourner. So let's see how this one goes. My opponent leads off with Tornadus and Landorus, which is probably the worst lead for me to go up against by leading Gouging Fire. I have no way to protect it, and the Landorus does outspeed Gouging Fire. So the opponent's going to set up Tailwind. I'm going to set up Tailwind, again, the kind of riveting gameplay that you expect from VGC Rega F. And the Earth Power comes out and Gouging Fire just goes straight down, so this is not going to be a Gouging Fire match. That's a shame. Now I'm going to bring in my Walking Wake because it has a much better matchup into Landorus, one of the scariest Pokemon, and it's actually going to do a defensive terror into the poison typing. So I set up the sun, and I can get like my Protosynthesis boost and everything. The opponent's probably hoping that since Hydro Steam is no longer super effective, they can live one. I go for the Hydro Steam into the very, very scary Landorus, and it does just drop even though it's a neutral hit. So yeah, basically Walking Wake is extremely strong, and you have to be able to resist the Hydro Steam to live that, and even then it might be a push. So that's a really good one. It's kind of a good trade, but they do also get very strong damage on both of my Pokemon with that Bleak Wind. It actually takes my Walking Wake down to below half with the Life Orb Bleak Oil as well, so I might not live this turn with my Walking Wake, which is not great. Now, Tornadus is actually a really important piece for me in this endgame, and I thought that they might try to double my Tornadus so that I would lose Weather and Tailwind control. And so that protect actually works out really nicely. I can protect from the Fake Out of the Grass Glide, and I do get off a Flamethrower into the Rillaboom, which one-hit KOs. I'm not sure if it was an Assault Vest Rillaboom or a more offensive variant, but I am able to get that one-hit KO, which is super great. as the Bleak Wind Storm comes out, and I'm kind of expecting Walking Weight to go down here because I took over half last turn, but I don't, I hang on, so that's some crazy min-max between the turns. It just got lucky that it did slightly less damage this turn, and I survive on a little bit, but you'll see here, so the opponent goes for Rain Dance. I'm trying to get my Sun up before the Urshifu gets to attack, but unfortunately they have Aqua Jet on the Urshifu, and they managed to get a rain boosted Aqua Jet off into my Walking Wake before I can set up the Sun. If I had managed to set up the Sun there, I'm pretty sure that that Aqua Jet would not have done enough damage into my Walking Wake, but it's whatever. The Tailwinds peter out, and I'm left with Stonjourner, which is definitely not intended to be like a cleaner. It's definitely a support Pokemon, so this isn't ideal. Now the Sun's already up, but I guess that the opponent might want to try to set up the rain to get some really powerful attacks off with Urshifu. So I make a prediction there and I get it right. If the Bleak Wind had come out there, that would not have been a great turn for me. But I know that with Stonjourner being so physically bulky, in the Sun it will 100% be able to live Surging Strikes. So that was a really good prediction on my part. I can take the Surging Strikes and get very good Rock Tomb damage off into Tornadus, which gets a speed drop, and that puts me in a really interesting position where if I set up with Tailwind, Stonjourner will outspeed Tornadus, and I can attack them, which means that this turn I really want to set up Tailwind to prevent Tornadus from getting off a Bleak Wind Storm. Stonjourner is very bulky on the physical side, but very frail on the special side, so like a combination of the Surging Strikes and a Bleak Wind Storm into Stonjourner could be devastating. I do actually have my Terra left, and I want to go for Terra Water this turn. I was really worried about Terra using my Terastallization last turn, because if I was Terra Water, I would take way too much damage from Bleak Wind Storm. But this way, now with the Tailwind and the Rock Tomb play, I can prevent the Tornadus from getting that Bleak Wind Storm off. So this turn I can quite safely go for this Terra Water. And Terra Water is great on Stonjourner because it's Focus Sash, but Surging Strikes from Urshifu and also Tachyon Cutter from Iron Crown hit multiple times and is super effective, so we'll be able to take my Stonjourner out. But Terra Water means I resist both of those, so it's a really great option. The opponent's Tornadus actually protects, which I obviously didn't expect because I attacked into it, but it does mean that I kind of get my Tailwind off for free. The Rock Tomb obviously is going into protect. The Urshifu goes for a Surging Strikes into my Stonjourner and is doing pitiful damage. Like, I've never seen a Surging Strikes do less damage because in the Sun it's resisted by an extremely physically bulky Pokemon. That was pretty great. In fact, Grassy Terrain is going to recover most of that damage back, which is so good. So now I'm in a position where I've actually got my Tailwind up, but I'm faster than the opponent, so I can't set up the Sunny Day because their Rain Dance would go after my Sunny Day now. But it's kind of fine because at this point I can take out their Tornadus. My Stonjourner is not going to go down to a Surging Strikes anytime soon, and the Rain gives my Bleak Wind Storm 100% accuracy. It's boosted by Power Spot from the Stonjourner. Stonjourner has an ability that boosts the power of its allies' moves, so that Urshifu just goes down, and even if it was Focus Sashed, my Stonjourner would have been able to take it down the following turn. So that was such an exciting endgame. I can't tell you how excited I am when Stonjourner is able to clean up games or actually get some KOs, because it's meant to be more of a supportive Pokemon. In fact, the reason it's on the team is because it gets access to Wide Guard and its ability Power Spot is really neat. So you can have protection against spread moves while boosting up your allies' damage. Specifically, it's really nice against Expanding Force and Trick Room. So here we have Armarouge, Terra Psychic Armarouge, with Helping Hand Indeedee. Trick Room has already been set up, and they are going to go for the Expanding Force. But I have Wide Guard Stonjourner. I guess a lot of people aren't familiar with Stonjourner because it's not very commonly used. But Wide Guard is an option, and I can just completely protect my field from that Expanding Force, allowing my Gouging Fire to survive the turn and get off another one-hit KO from the Flare Blitz, absolutely decimating that Indeedee. Now my opponent sends out their Hatterene, again another potential Expanding Force user, so I just go for another Wide Guard, hoping that they go for maybe Dazzling Gleam or Expanding Force, but they do actually have single target and Psychic, which takes me all the way down to my Focus Sash, but I am able to survive because, you know, that's why I've given this thing as Focus Sash. It's so weak from the special side that it will faint to a lot of special moves. But the Expanding Forces come out, and that means that I get another Flare Blitz off with my Gouging Fire, taking down the Hatterene as well. So 2 more one-hit KOs from this match. So that's just showing you what Stonjourner is meant to do. I also have this footage. So here there's an Iron Crown, which again is another Expanding Force user, and I can wide guard against that. And Iron Crown's Expanding Force is blocked. And this is the battle of the new Paradox Pokemon. Iron Crown also introduced in Indigo Disc as well as Gouging Fire. So who's going to win? Obviously Iron Crown is not doing any damage there with its Expanding Force, as I can go for the resisted Flare Blitz into Terra Water Iron Crown. But obviously you know that that's going to be a one-hit KO as well. So Iron Crown going down 2. Just a couple of notes about the team. You always bring Gouging Fire and Walking Weight because they are your damage dealers. With Gouging Fire, you kind of want to just forget about type matchups. Flare Blitz is almost always your best move, unless you're against some Dragon types when Dragon type moves might be better, or against some Fire types where Stomping Tantrum might be better, but even then Flare Blitz might be the safer move to click. Tornadus and Electabuzz are great support Pokemon against faster teams. Torkoal is a great pick against Trick Room teams or more passive teams where you actually might get some eruptions off. And Stonjourner is there to help against spread damage, so if you see a Regidrago particularly, because both of your sweepers are Dragon types, then definitely bring a Wide Guard user. But also things like Fluttermane Chi-Yu like to use spread moves, Gordengo, and you saw Expanding Force as well. And just a quick reminder that if Gouging Fire gets intimidated, then Protosynthesis will boost its speed, not its attack, but that in itself can actually be useful. I hope you enjoy using this team as much as I do. There's nothing quite as satisfying as one-hit KOing something with a resisted move. It's super, super fun. Let me know if you do try it out in the comment section below, but all that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.